The Streets of Rage trilogy was a series that defined a console as well as a generation of video games. These games were Sega's answer to the popular beat-em-up genre at the time. Streets of Rage has become synonymous with the Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis, as the entire trilogy for the console sold around 9.6 million copies worldwide. The series ended at 1994 with the release of Streets of Rage 3, and Sega finally closed the book to their beat-em-up series. Or so we thought it did. Ideas of bringing back the series have been pitched for more than 2 decades. Take 1996 for example, during the early days of the 5th generation console era. British video game development studio Core Design, who is famous on making the Tomb Raider series, pitched an idea to Sega for a potential 4th Streets of Rage game. However, the idea was rejected by Sega. According to an article from Sega Saturn magazine, issue 21 July 1997, Sega were apparently interested in the concept but hinted that they had their own ideas for continuing the series. Because of this, Core Design decided to realize their project themselves but with a different title. Thus, the 3D brawler game called Fighting Force was born, released in 5th of November 1997 for the Sony PlayStation, published by Eidos. The idea that Sega claimed to have was unfortunately never realized. Streets of Rage was pretty much being kept in dark for more than 2 decades, though the influence of Streets of Rage trilogy never faded. From 2003 to 2011, a group of independent developers from Spain called Bomber Games created a fan-made Streets of Rage game called Streets of Rage Remake. The developers took whatever made the original trilogy great into one 32-bit mega package of a game. The game can be played for free on a Windows PC. Unfortunately, Sega shut down this ambitious fan-made project out of commitment to protect their own IP. However, it would not be the end of Streets of Rage Remake, as the game had an update called version 5.2 back in 2020. The game can still be played here today. This will be a game that I'm covering in a different video. More than 2 decades after the release of Streets of Rage 3, Sega finally greenlit a new Streets of Rage game. Sega gave the rights for the IP to 3 studios, .emu, Guard Crush Games, and Lizard Cube. After a long hiatus, Streets of Rage 4 finally made an official release on 20th of April 2020. It was a long journey, but we are finally here. Out of all the games in the series, I can safely say that Streets of Rage 4 is the best one. The game was able to bring an old genre from the 90s to a newer generation of gamers. The game is proof ideas can always work if developers play their cards right. There's so much to talk about Streets of Rage 4. In this video, we are going to discuss everything you need to know from the development history to the gameplay aspect itself. So sit back and relax, ladies and gentlemen, as we are going to take a look at the greatest comeback of the decade, known as Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4 were developed by 3 French studios, each with their respective roles. Lizard Cube acted as the lead graphic designer, Guard Crush Games acted as the main programmer, and .emu acted as the publisher. After the release of Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap in 2017, which was a remake of the 1989 Sega game Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap, Lizard Cube wanted to make a similar remake with Streets of Rage, specifically Streets of Rage 2. This idea was first pitched by the game's artist and CEO of the company, Ben Fiquet. He initially wanted to do the game with the lead programmer of Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap, Omar Cornu. However, Cornu had other commitments at the time. Sometime later, Lizard Cube and their publisher, .emu, approached Sega Japan to ask permission in developing a new Streets of Rage game. Instead of remaking Streets of Rage 2, they wanted to revive the series with a sequel. After long negotiations, Sega finally gave the approval for both companies to handle the new Streets of Rage game. Thus, the production for Streets of Rage 4 officially began at the start of 2018. Despite Lizard Cube wanting to make a Streets of Rage game, they did not have any experience working on a beat-em-up game. To realize this project, Lizard Cube and .emu brought in a studio that has experience in the genre, Guard Crush Games. For your information, Guard Crush Games developed Streets of Fury EX, released in 2015. Prior to the negotiation between Sega, Lizard Cube, and .emu, Guard Crush Games co-founder Jordi Asensio actually had contacts with Koshiro Yuzo, the composer of Streets of Rage series, in regards to kickstart a new Streets of Rage game. However, during the time of negotiation, Jordi Asensio met the people from Lizard Cube at an indie event. He found out that the interest of bringing back Streets of Rage was pretty mutual among them. With their experience on Streets of Fury EX, Jordi Asensio presented an improved game engine from the mentioned game to people at Lizard Cube and .emu. Thus, Jordi Asensio was assigned to be the lead game designer for Streets of Rage 4. Considering Streets of Rage has been absent for more than 2 decades, the team needed to do something different for the 4th game while maintaining the game's identity. Therefore, a fresh new art direction was necessary for the project. Lizard Cube CEO Ben Fiquet was tasked to be the art director for the game. According to Fiquet, they decided to set the story of the game 10 years after Streets of Rage 3. This decision was made because they think the setting of young, fiery kids in the streets wasn't working anymore with fans who had grown up since the 90s. Having a new setting that reflects the current time would also give more freedom to reimagine the old characters. Every character and every background settings of Streets of Rage 4 were fully hand-drawn. According to Fiquet, creating the 2D art of the game was a very time-consuming process as each playable character has around 1000 frames and every enemy has around 300 to 400 frames. As a result, the animation is very smooth for the final product. With all the development being completed, they finally released Streets of Rage 4 on 20th of April 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. It has almost been 5 years since the game's release. In the next chapter, we are going to take a look at the core gameplay aspect of Streets of Rage 4. The gameplay of Streets of Rage 4 is probably the most in-depth of the series to date. According to the lead designer, Jordi Asensio, he built the gameplay style with Streets of Rage 2 in mind. He considered the second game of the series to be the best one. It's even to the point where when he tested the game, he played both Streets of Rage 4 and Streets of Rage 2 back to back. Since the game was built upon Streets of Rage 2, all of the basic attacks from the second game are present. You have a normal attack string with the square button and 3 different special attacks. Special attacks include the defensive special with the triangle button, offensive special with the D-pad and the triangle button, and the blitz attack with double forward and square button. Both the offensive and defensive special attacks consume your character's health bar. The game introduced a 4th special attack, the aerial special. To perform the aerial special, you simply have to press the triangle button in the air. Just like the defensive and offensive special attacks, the aerial special consumes your character's health bar. In comparison to Streets of Rage 2, the special attacks do not fully consume your health bar. In Streets of Rage 4, whenever you perform a special attack with the triangle button, your character's health bar will turn green. You can regenerate the green health bar by simply hitting enemies with your normal attacks. If you get hit by an enemy attack, however, the green health bar depletes instantly. I really do like this change with how special attacks work. Not only does it make the game more stylish as you can perform more combos with specials, but it also balances the game as it prevents you from spamming specials. Speaking of combos, this game is a combo fest. Because of the better graphics and fluid animation, this game allows you to juggle enemies. Players can perform multiple creative combos with the moves that the game has to offer. There are so many videos on YouTube of players performing crazy combos in Streets of Rage 4 for both single and multiplayer. In a way, this game is like a 2D version of Devil May Cry. In fact, the game actually rewards you for performing combo chains. The game has a ranking system where it evaluates you based on the amount of points you earned. D being the worst rank in the game and S being the best rank in the game. To get better score, you simply have to perform longer combo chains. The game has a combo counter and as it goes up, the points that you earn multiply as well. Performing long combo chains, however, can be very difficult. The combo counter breaks when you are hit by an enemy. This also means you lose all of your points that you collect from the combo counter. So if you want to get the S rank on the stage, make sure you crank up that combo counter without getting hit. According to the lead programmer, Cyril Lararine, They were able to create this gameplay system because of the engine they have built just for this game. It was also made possible considering technology for video games have improved a lot compared to what we had back in 1991. The combat system for Streets of Rage 4 was also created with other fighting games in mind. According to Jordi Asensio, they had to analyze fighting games like Street Fighter 3 and Fatal Fury frame by frame to understand which mechanics can work on a beat-em-up game. In a way, it's like when Koshiro Ayano, the lead designer of Streets of Rage 2, had to analyze Street Fighter 2 to create the game. The developers of Streets of Rage 4 clearly understood the assignment here. With fighting games in mind during development, this game implemented big super attacks that you usually find in mentioned games. Do you see the star below your health bar? This is the number of super attacks that you can do. To perform a super attack, you press both the triangle and the circle button together. Since super attacks are consumables, player must use them wisely. Considering the combat system was built off Streets of Rage 2, this means the abilities to run and side roll introduced in Streets of Rage 3 were removed. Though some characters are able to run or dash, such as Cherry, Adam, and Shiva. The developers did a fantastic job with the gameplay of Streets of Rage 4. They really understood what makes the series great and opted to make the fourth game even better. With that said, I consider Streets of Rage 4 to have the best gameplay of the entire series. The game takes place 10 years after the third game. Mr. X is finally dead for good. However, the Syndicate once again returns to Wood Oak City under the leadership of Mr. X's twin children, Mr. Y and Miss Y. I know, such creative names. Like Streets of Rage 2, you have the ability to choose from 4 different characters. Axel Stone and Blaze Fielding are back in the fight, thus making them the only 2 characters who are playable in all of the Streets of Rage games. In replace of Skate Hunter as the speed-oriented character of the group, the game introduced Cherry Hunter, the daughter of Adam Hunter. In replace of Max Thunder as the power-oriented character of the group, the game introduced Floyd Iraya, a man with robot arms who is no doubt was heavily inspired by Jax from Mortal Kombat. A 5th character can be unlocked after completing Stage 4. After being absent for 2 games, Adam Hunter finally made his glorious return to the series. Out of all the 5 characters, Adam is definitely the best one. It's a given honestly, since he hasn't been playable since the first game back in 1991. When it comes to unlockable characters, Adam is not the only character that you can unlock. Considering the game serves as a big comeback of the series, all of the characters from the 3 Streets of Rage games are unlockables. You get to experience the retro characters in all of their 16-bit Mega Drive glory. To unlock these characters, you simply have to play the game to collect enough points. In total, the game has a roster of 17 characters. Unlocking past characters by playing the game. How I wish more video game companies would apply this concept nowadays. One of the biggest appeal of Streets of Rage games is the ability to play with a friend. I mentioned in the first Streets of Rage video that the first game was able to bring 2-player co-op, unlike the Super Nintendo version of Final Fight. For the first time in the series' history, Streets of Rage 4 enables you to play 4-player co-op. This is no doubt one of the best features the game has to offer. There's nothing more satisfying than to play a brawler game with 3 other homies. As Dr. Eggman liked to phrase it,
you know what they say, the more the merry.
This game has an online feature. Unfortunately, the online can only be played up to 2 players. You cannot play 4-player co-op online. According to SegaRetro.org, the developers didn't put an online 4-player feature because it would have made matchmaking more complex, and it would have also delayed the game even further. Despite that, it doesn't take away the quality of the game. Streets of Rage 4 has 2 main modes, Story Mode and Arcade Mode. In Story Mode, you walk through 12 different stages with each of them having a boss fight at the end. In this mode, if you run out of lives, you get to continue from the beginning of the stage where you left off. You can even save your progress on this mode. This means you can choose to leave the game and come back where you left off. Arcade mode is more or less similar to Story mode. The only difference is that you only have one continue throughout the entire playthrough. It's game over when you run out of lives in the playthrough. This also means that you cannot save your progress. So if you want to go back to the game, you have to go back at the very beginning. The game also introduced Boss Rush. In this mode, you have to fight all the bosses with only one life. If you die once, it's game over. It's a good extra mode if you are up to a decent challenge. The game marks a 26-year return of the series. The developers made sure that it's a game to celebrate the series in general. With multiple game modes and unlockable characters, the game made sure to everyone that Streets of Rage is finally back and better than ever. A year after the release of the game, Streets of Rage 4 announced a DLC called Mr. X Nightmare. This DLC includes 3 new playable characters and 1 additional game mode. The first new character is Estelle, a policewoman of Wood Oak City. She's the boss that you fight in Stage 4 and Stage 7. At first, she was ordered to stop the heroes out of a false narrative. However, later in the story, she realized that the police were being controlled by the Syndicate, and so she decided to help the heroes. The second new character is Max Thunder, making his return from Streets of Rage 2. Max is also a boss in which you encounter in Stage 9. Max maintains most of his moves from Streets of Rage 2, but improved greatly for this game. The third new character is Shiva, who is a boss that you fight in Stage 6. I mentioned Adam was the best character in the game, but after the DLC came out, Shiva became the best character in the game. No doubt, this is the most broken character in the roster. There is one more hidden character that you can unlock after the DLC's release. Rue from Streets of Rage 3 made his return. Unlike the rest of the retro characters, you cannot unlock Rue via gameplay alone. To unlock Rue, you need to go to the menu screen and hold up and the square button, then press the start button. With the addition of new characters from the DLC, the game now has a total roster of 21 playable characters. It's a large number of selectable characters for a 2D beat-em-up game, if you ask me. The additional game mode for the DLC is Survival Mode. Just as the name suggested, this is an endurance test to see how far you are able to play through. The game only ends when you die. Survival Mode is not without rewards, by the way. As you progress through the mode, you can unlock new special moves for each and every character. With this addition, the game allows you to customize the moveset for all the characters in the roster. This really enhanced not only the gameplay, but the replay value as well. The Mr. X DLC was a great addition to the game. It stacked the game with even more content to enjoy. Personally, I think this is how DLCs are supposed to be done. DLCs should not be content that was taken out from the base game to be sold separately. DLCs should be additional content that expanded an already complete base game. For the sound and music department, Olivier Derivière was assigned as the lead composer for Streets of Rage 4. Derivière has more than 20 years of experience as a composer in the video game industry. Some of the games he worked on were the obscure Duology, Alone in the Dark 2008, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Freedom Cry, Life is Strange, and many more. For this game, Derivière mostly tried to do a continuation of the musical style from the original trilogy. Since the developers wanted to have the musical essence present in the game, Koshiro Yuzo and Kawashima Motohiro were contacted to contribute as co-composers. As previously mentioned, the lead designer, Jordi Asensio, had talked with both Koshiro and Kawashima before the development even begun. The developers were also able to successfully contract a Japanese soundtrack company called Brave Wave Production. The company was able to have multiple legendary Japanese guest composers for the game, which includes Shimamura Yoko and Fujita Harumi. The game also had other guest composers from North America, such as Axel Middleton, Grandislava, and T. Lopez. It was an all-star collaborative music project for Streets of Rage 4. With many composers working on the game, Olivier Derivière needed to make sure that the soundtracks be in line with one direction. The game did an amazing job for the soundtracks with the many composers working in it. I will let the music do all the talking. Streets of Rage 4 was a great comeback of a series that hasn't made an appearance for 26 years. The game did everything to not only respect the core of Streets of Rage, but to adapt with the landscape of modern gaming in the 2020s. It goes to show that when developers play their cards right, any ideas can work. The game has the most in-depth combat in the series. With the engaging gameplay style and rich in content, players are sure to be kept busy with Streets of Rage 4. These aspects made the fourth entry as the best in the series. Hey, I would even go as far as saying Streets of Rage 4 is the best 2D beat-em-up game, period. The game was a critical and commercial success. As of 2022, Streets of Rage 4 has sold around 3.53 million copies worldwide across multiple ports. The game earned an estimated gross revenue of $87.7 million US. This number includes the base Streets of Rage 4 and the Mr. X Nightmare DLC collectively. This video marks the end of the Streets of Rage series retrospective, as I have covered all 4 mainline entries. There is one more Streets of Rage game I want to cover, and that's the amazing fan-made project called Streets of Rage Remake. However, I'm saving that video for another time. Not to mention, I have 4 different videos already on this channel covering the game. So, if you want to hear my thoughts on Streets of Rage Remake, go watch those videos. That's all there is, ladies and gentlemen, a deep dive to the great comeback of the decade known as Streets of Rage 4. What are your thoughts on the game? Do you think Streets of Rage 4 is an amazing comeback of the series? Let me know in the comment section below. With that being said, this is me, Profar. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give me a thumbs down. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, join the Profar Mokui Hunter X Discord server. I'll see you guys in the next video.